So today, I want to tell you a story and I want to untwist something. We're headed into a holiday that we call Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving, I like, is a wonderful holiday. I like Thanksgiving, but sometimes during the holidays, people deal with things. They go through things. Family members who have passed on, there are hurts and there are things that they have to deal with during holidays that they may not have to deal with emotionally, mentally, spiritually, the rest of the year. I've always known about that. I've always understood that about the holiday season. But when we understand Thanksgiving, we realize that Thanksgiving is a time when people fill their bellies, and this is the history of it, at least they fill their bellies because they know that after Thanksgiving, this is harvest. So they fill themselves full during harvest. This is how they thought. Because the earth is about to go to sleep. Winter is coming. And the earth is now about to sleep, to hibernate, to rest itself. This is what holidays are, to rest itself. But Thanksgiving is not always that. So Thanksgiving is not always that happy for everybody. For people who are going through things out in the streets, who don't have their homes, who are not engaged with their families the way they want to be or should be. Thanksgiving can be a tough place. But especially for those who have been misplaced, especially in our country, Thanksgiving can be an interesting time, especially for those who are indigenous people. So I was looking into this and I was thinking, I said, tell me about the history of it. Where does it come from? And everybody's talking about how the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock, but Malcolm X told you about that. That we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Plymouth Rock, though it is a city up there in Massachusetts, I believe it's Massachusetts, the whole mythical thing is more of a mythical thing. They didn't land on Plymouth Rock. What had happened is that before that, or 10, 12 years before that, that people had always been coming and going to this place called America. The only one that didn't was Columbus, because he may have got here later, but he didn't find America. So he thought it was the West Indies when he reached the Bahamas. He did not know where he was, and hurt and enslaved very many of those indigenous people. Well, the indigenous people came all the way from North America down through Central America, down into South America. It is believed that just in North America alone, over 60 million indigenous people populated this place. It was much more. But after the settlers came, the Spaniards and the Portuguese and the English and all of those came over, it says that after that, by the time when the Pilgrims came, they were expecting to see all these people. But they got here and there was 90% of the indigenous people were dead. What had happened is that Europe had come over with diseases such as syphilis, smallpox, and things of that sort. And the indigenous people were not ready for that. And their immune systems were not there. And these people literally left. But when these others came from Europe, they came because they wanted a new place for their religion, because they were tired of King James. King James is the one that did the Bible back in the 1611. And so they came over. King James didn't like those people because they were they didn't like him, is the bottom line. And so he was ready to get rid of them. So what happened was King James said, I want to get married to another woman, but the Catholic Church that I've been serving won't let me. So I'm going to make my own religion. They won't help me. I've been talking to the Pope. The Pope says no. So forget the Pope. I will become the head of my own church. So they created in England something called the Anglican Church. And so now the Anglican Church had something inside of that, a combination of Catholic looking, but Protestant acting. The Puritans or the Separatists, the Puritans were part of it. The Separatists were like the not so Christian. The Puritans were the Christians. And so what happened was the Separatist says, we leaving. We want our own place to worship, and God's going to give us a new land. And so what happened was they got in this rickety boat called the Mayflower. And it had holes. They had two of them, actually, they were going to leave on. One of the boats kept coming back to shore because it kept falling apart by the time they just got a little ways out in the ocean. And so 102 of them crammed into this thing called the Mayflower. The Mayflower's mast broke a couple of times. They couldn't fix it and everything. By the time they got to where they were going, they were trying to go to Virginia. They wound up in Massachusetts, where it was about freezing cold up there. They got out of the 102 that got out of that Mayflower. When they came out, there is this iconic picture of the Pilgrims. They were not called Pilgrims, by the way. They were Separatists. This picture shows them kneeling on the shores of Plymouth and praying to God. Well, that's not really what it was, but they did pray. But where they prayed was further in. When they got there, the bones of the 50 million indigenous people that had died from the disease that was brought by the Europeans were now skeletons. And they got on their knees on top of these skeletons and thanked God for killing those people to give them this land. So they believed and thanked God for blessing them with this land by killing those people. When you devalue life for one group of people, you will devalue it for the rest. Be careful, because there are people that will kneel and pray over your broken bones. They will do things that will hurt you, but that will further themselves. And they will believe that God has blessed them. Women, be very careful about what you do and who we give ourselves to. It's male and female, it doesn't matter. Too early and too quick. Because then all of a sudden the person's gone and the bones. I know I'm not supposed to be interrupting right here, but remember, myalc.org. That's myalc.org. And you can also give at 713-742-2035. You can use your text to give or use your app. If you're on the app, you can go right to that donate button and it won't change anything. You say, why in the world would you break my concentration? I'm sorry, but I wanted you to remember, because you know what? Just like there's a break in here, there's also going to be a breakthrough in your life. I believe that. Now, let's go back. Are left. And while they're gone, they will see that God has blessed them, and now they're just moving on. When the bones are left, in order, the skeleton of what was or what we thought was real and true, and now we got to build our lives back all over again. Be careful of people who build their lives on your programs, your corporate business, that build their lives on your ideas. Be careful, because people will. And so as they got up off their knees, they went in, but they couldn't make it through the winter. Only 40 or so of them made it through the winter out of 102. They died, and the reason they made it, they had no food, they had nothing. They had resorted, it is also believed, into cannibalism and things of that sort. It is said that's how they survived that winter. By the time it got to the spring, the indigenous people came out. It was the Wampanoag. It was that tribe. That tribe still exists in Massachusetts. And they came out and they said, y'all all right? They said, no, and they began shooting at them. As a matter of fact, when they would win wars against the indigenous people, they would thank God or bring about what they called thanksgiving, because they had defeated a group of the indigenous people. Whatever they did, however they tortured them, this is how it began. Well, after all of this that took place, after all of this that had happened, the indigenous people decided, they said, hey, you guys are going to die if you don't take care of yourself. And we're going to show you how to do certain things. So now you got Squanto, you're dealing with Pocahontas, you're dealing with all of these different people you've heard over in history. And so the actual Thanksgiving meal really did take place. It took place over a period of 3 days. The fighting ceased for a while. Something happened, and they came together. Now, the people from Europe didn't bring no covered dish. Anybody, and they're going to get me for this, anybody that knows anything about the English cuisine knows there's not too much that comes out of England when it comes to cuisine. That's the French and the Spanish, that's all of them. So there was no covered dish. So who basically brought the food? Now I'm sure the English brought marshmallows or something. But we know the indigenous people, they had killed, 90 of them had killed 5 deer and brought venison. This is where we get turkeys. They killed turkeys and they brought turkeys. And the Europeans had never seen these kind of turkeys before. They also brought the harvest of the ground with them, which were green beans. So we know green bean casserole came from the indigenous people. They brought squash. And they brought the cranberry sauce. Just seriously. Cranberries were the fruit that grew there, and it grew, well, here, and it grew, and they cultivated it, and they brought it. Not only did they bring that, but they brought the pumpkin pie, because they brought the pumpkins to be able to eat. Now, when you look at Thanksgiving, you know when black people done got involved in it. They got the turkey, they got the cranberry sauce and the gravy, they got all of that. The green beans, they got all of that. But now their pumpkin pie, they got yams that come out of Africa, so now black people have sweet potato pie. Then you go off into Mexico, because there was something going on there as it came up through Texas. So you have the foods of Mexico that have now been added to this thing called Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was only those 3 days, and they went back, and Europeans went to begin to destroy the rest of the indigenous people and move them on out and call it manifest destiny. But it comes at that point of Thanksgiving. Even those who are indigenous, those who came out of the continent of Africa, those who came out of Mexico and out of South America, and Central America, those that came from other parts of the world and brought their cultures and brought their cuisines and brought their foods into all of this thing called Thanksgiving. Here is what we have in America. What we have in America is a moment in a time that people just, let me stop right there. The Europeans did bring something. Beer. Yeah. They could make some beer. They made beer from the time they came out of caves. They made beer. It was called mead. They brought beer. Beer at one time, many of you may not know, beer is made from barley and hops and things of that sort. And when they could not take food anywhere, they took beer. There was beer on the Mayflower. Noah had wine on the ark. God gave it to him, Scripture said. That's true. And so you got to have that to get through. And then, I don't know, they didn't have football. Well, they did have football because indigenous people played with this little skin thing that there's football was even back then. There was games and everything that went on through Thanksgiving. And so all of us come together during this time. This is how we have to look at it. That through all of the tough moments and places in life, we have to take a time and a moment where we can just say thank you. Not merely for the blessings that everybody may not have the same blessings you have, but to be able to say thank you in the space of where we are. Just thank you. I don't know, what are you thankful for? What if you can look and at least look back and say, and look at your life. And you may not think of too much because sometimes I don't always feel thankful. I say, you know what? This is not a good day for me to say thank you to you. But then sometimes you got to say thank you to God on credit. You know, you don't have to feel thankful, but you say thank you anyway. And the more you say,
hello, I'm Ed Montgomery, and I want to encourage you about one thing. Don't you let your season pass you by. I've been talking on these little bitty clips about flowers and opening and blooming, but it takes pollination. In other words, it takes somebody going from one flower to another flower, and that's somebody, little bees and things of that sort. But just like bees will go from one flower to another flower and cause pollination and cause those flowers to reproduce, I think we touch each other's lives the same way. When we smile at each other, we reproduce joy and happiness. Our world needs so much. This is what ALC does. And when you give, you make a huge difference in our world. Take the time, go to myalc.org. That's myalc.org. Hit the donate button. You can give that way. A second way to give is to be able to use your text to give on your phone. And you can send it to the number 713-742-2035. That's 713-742-2035. And put however much the amount you want to give right in that text message part of it and send it safe and secure. Not only that, but you can use your app. Don't forget, if you're in the app right now, you can give through it right now. And then also, you can use your P.O. box. Just slip a check. People still do checks nowadays. Or you can give through your debit cards or credit cards if you got an envelope. But if you're just mailing it, put a stamp on that envelope, and you can send it to Abundant Life Center, P.O. Box 772-300, Houston, Texas 77215. Thank you so much for everything you do, for your contributions. I really appreciate you. Thank you, ALC, Abundant Life Center, and for all of you, ALC globally. Thank you for being a part of our lives. I hope we can continue to be a part of your life. Love you. See you.
hello, I'm Ed Montgomery. Thank you for being a part of this page, and thank you for all the likes and comments that you give. I need more. Listen, we've gone on spaces and places and pages and We've had our ups and downs, people taking us off and moved us aside and pushed here and everything. So we're trying to really build this page up better than it ever was. So I need your help. All I need you to do is like it. If you see a heart, press the heart. Whatever, the thumbs up, hit the thumbs up. Hit a comment. Tell me what you think. If it's nothing but 1 or 2 words, it makes a difference. And then share it with a friend. I know I'm asking you to do a lot, but you know, it requires a lot because we're doing a great work. It's gonna help you, it's gonna help me, it's gonna benefit all of us. So come on, let's get to work. Let's build this page. Come on. All right. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe button, smash it, crash it,